beer on the bus all the time, and our bus driver, Akasaka from New Japan Pro Wrestling, he had these things called 2-and-alls. And so the referee, Masao Hattori, you remember? You're not getting in trouble. Remember Masao Hattori? That was the referee in Japan, our friend. He's still alive, still a good guy. Anyway, he got Masao with a couple 2-and-alls in his beer, and we saw Masao doing this, and everybody thought that was funny. He was just going up and down the bus like every time, like he was falling down. You know, whenever Akasaka would slow down, he'd go toward the front. Whenever he'd speed up, he'd go toward the back, and he was just totally messed up. And so Paul decides to do this to me, and all of a sudden I'm feeling really weird. And we're in this little town where they make these wooden dolls, and we stayed in these rooms, and they put Paul and I in the same room, and they had these beds that had what's called, I think they're called, not yukatas, but they're flat little mats, and you're on a hardwood thing. That's your mattress. And there's about 20 of them in the room. And I just remembered laying down, and all of a sudden I woke up and I was drugged, and he drugged me. And when I woke up, I was like in a tunnel. I was in something I remember I just didn't know where I was, and I was fighting to get out as hard as I could. And he had stacked up 20, 25, as many mattresses of those little mattresses there were. He stacked them all up on top of me, and it crushed it between the top bed. So I'm down here, and all the mattresses are forcing me down where I can't move now. I'm trying to move and get out, and I'm screaming, help me, so loud. And in Japan, you know, I don't know what's happening because I'm drugged, and I'm stuck between two beds with all these mattresses on top of me. I can barely breathe. Oh God, you were brutal.
You're lucky you didn't die, actually.
I know, it's crazy.
We had a good time.
I guess.
Oh yeah, Fuji was great. You know, Fuji was one of the people, if he liked you, he'd look after you. If he didn't like you, keep one eye open all the time. Always. He will get you sometime. Yeah.
Is there any particular rib you witnessed him playing on someone that seemed particularly bad?
The only one I saw, it wasn't his worst. I know he had far worse because I heard about him. You know, when I got there, it wasn't as bad on the ribs as when he actually wrestled. He was much worse on the ribs when he wrestled. The worst one I ever saw is he went to the bathroom. He took a dump. He grabbed it out. He didn't like this one guy, so when the guy was kind of relaxing, he went in and put it under his goddamn face and made him smell it.
Wow.
And that's not a bad one for Fuji. That's not a bad one.
Yeah. And as far as traveling with him, as far as his ribs, Marty was like traveling with Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. I don't know how his brain works, but like if you leave him alone for 30 seconds, he starts looking around the room and thinking of shit to do, to mess with you. For example, one time, like if we went to an area and we were going to stay in a particular town for a hotel for 3 or 4 days, he didn't like to eat out. He would go to save money. He'd go to the grocery store. So he'd buy groceries and then leave them set in the room on the air conditioner or whatever to keep them cool. I think Glenn Jacobs had slept in our room the night before, and then so we had a rollaway in the room, and I was taking a shower, which is never good because you're leaving him alone in the room. And I hear him out there doing something, and I know he's up to something. And he had taken the rollaway, had made it like an accordion and stuck it between the bathroom door that opened in and the closet wall, because there wasn't much space, it was real narrow. And then sat the jug of milk on the mattress so that when I opened the door, the mattress went like this and shot the jug of milk across the bathroom and crashed against the wall, and milk went everywhere. And it's just like, who thinks of that? How does your brain work like that? Went to go take a shower one time, and the water was all greasy because he had went and taken a shower before and taken the shower head off and stuffed it full of KY jelly. Where did you get the KY jelly? Why you kept bringing it with you? And you took the time to take a shower head off. How'd you get it off? 8 IcoPro amino tablets that had been left in his garage for years and had like kind of brown edge on them. It gave him horrific gas, and the only reason he ate them was because it gave him horrific gas, so he would fart on the plane and bother people. I remember we were in San Antonio in Texas, and they had this little closet of a room where they were having the agent meeting, and he's like, watch this. I go, okay. And he gets a big smile on his face, and he walks in the agent room, and then nothing. And all of a sudden the door opens, and he walks out laughing, shuts the door. He says, stand right here. I don't move. About 30 seconds later, Jesus Christ! And they all come piling out of there because he'd went in and busted ass, didn't tell anybody, and then shut the door again and left them sealed in that little small coffin of a room with him shitting his pants.
You mentioned the Bulldogs messing with Beefcake a little bit. Did you notice the ribs that they were playing in the dressing room? Obviously, the most famous was the stuff that led to the Rougeau incident, but I heard they mess with Outback Jack a lot too.
Yeah, they. We could talk about this because both of these guys have passed away. So, and Outback Jack, I don't know where he is, but they halcyoned him, and that was a sleeping pill that you would put in someone's drink, and so he was knocked out. And he always wore that hat, so they took the hat off, tore it all off, then they shaved his head. And this is all on an airplane, and people are looking at that. They put they didn't shave it all the way, just a big tract, and he was like, and then they put super glue on the hat and put it back on his head. So he couldn't get it off. When he did, he tore his hair off. And I wasn't around, I just got away from that, and I got away from when he was getting his bags and stuff, but I heard he ripped the hat off, and it was a horrible scene. And Outback Jack, so ended up, Outback Jack shows up, and Jay Strongbow sitting back to the hotel. You can't wrestle like that. And you know who got fired? Outback Jack.
Well, I guess he was a dispensable one. Who was the better ribber between you and Kurt?
I'd go with Kurt. I don't know though. I don't know. I mean, we had a pretty much. This is when you know that you must be up there when you truce out with each other. old Kurt got me the best he ever got me. He'd locked my bag to like the drawers, the hotel drawers. You know, where it had the handle, and he had a little bit of a chain, and put it through the handle, and they locked my bag to the drawer.
Yeah.
And the next morning we was running late, so I didn't have time to. What did I do? Break the drawer apart or what? The way you get somebody back is like make that rib backfire on them, right? So I just took the drawer out and went to the airport with it. And Kurt was like, "Oh man, Marty, don't do that. No, I'm taking this with me." When we got to the, you put your bag on the thing that goes through. Yeah. I had to do it with a drawer attached to it, and they were like. They were even confused, like, what do we do? The people working there, they were like, what do we do about this? Kurt's like, he always checks his drawers. He always, Kurt was always so funny. But it ended up, I actually didn't get to make that flight because they didn't know what to do. They went through, they let it go through. But then when we got to the plane, it wouldn't fit in the overhead. They were like, they were confused, like, well, we can't let you have a drawer, but we don't know what to do. When you go, end up having to take the next flight, and Kurt was like, he never would rib me again because that went up. His rib got back at him because I was like, somebody locked my drawer. Kurt Hennig was with me. I don't know.
I'll tell you one about rattlesnake. Okay, this is the kind of guy he was. My brother and I don't know if my brother told you this one.
No, said he was going to let you tell the family stories.
Okay, so he told me and Rob, and we were about high school, maybe freshman in high school, 14, 15 years old. He says, and we lived in Mississippi and he lived in Tennessee. And he said, do you guys have any rattlesnakes down there where you are? And we go, yeah, man, there's all kinds of snakes there. We got rattlers there, And he says, I'll give you guys $20 for a live rattlesnake. So we catch him a rattler. And we put him in the bucket, and we're going to go visit Roy about a week later. We keep this rattlesnake in the bucket for a whole week, sitting on the carport. And anytime you went by it, we kicked the bucket, and boy, he'd go crazy. So we go up to Tennessee to visit Roy. So he pulls the rattlesnake out of the trunk, and he's got the lid. We got a lid on the big 5-gallon bucket, and he just dumped the rattlesnake out on the ground. I never saw anybody catch a snake like that. I mean, snake hits on the ground, and he grabbed him just behind his head before he could even coil. And then he said, "Y'all want to see something?" I said, "Yeah." So we followed him out to a milk barn. He had a big dairy, and he had the rattler by the back of the head, and he had a needle and thread there. And he had already threaded the needle, and he sewed that rattlesnake's mouth shut so they couldn't bite you. And then when he finished sewing his mouth shut, we watched all that. I was like, gosh almighty, man. And that snake was, you can imagine, he was going nuts, And then he took the snake and he threw him in his Cadillac. Just pitched him in the car, closed the door. And I said, "What are you going to do?" And he goes, "I'm riding." I got 3 guys going with me tonight. He goes, "I'm going to have some fun." So I'm like, "Whoa, you got a live rattlesnake in there?" And he goes, "Yeah. That's as good," So I asked him next morning, I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Boy, I got her up to about 120. And he goes, the old snake was quiet. He was under the front seat, just sat there. And he said, "I finally had to tell a joke." And he said, "I told a joke, and at the end of it," he said, I started laughing, and I slapped that seat. And he said, "Boy, that he was underneath the front seat." He said he started cranking up, And so I said, "Well, what did you do? Did you slow down?" He goes, "Hell no, I didn't slow down. I kept her 120. And I said, "What did they do?" And he said, "They started opening their doors." And he said, "They were about to take the leap." And I was like, "Oh man, are you kidding?" So they used to do crazy ribs back in those days, and he was a nut.
Fuji would make cookies and put LSD in it. "You want a cookie, brother? You lick the cookie. You want to lick the cookie? You lick the cookie, the room starts spinning on you."
He's lucky nobody did.
You ain't like, we all say that? But he's very lucky that he would urinate. He would take a beer, drink half of it, and urinate in it with people he didn't like. "You want a beer, brother?"
Wow.
Fuji was rotten, brother. Fuji would do all type of shit to you, man. You had to watch Fuji. One of the tricks he used to love doing, a guy, when he fall asleep on an airplane, he'd carry a makeup kit with him, a woman's makeup kit. He would put lipstick on you, eyeshadow, and then he'd take a little bit of water, a drop at a time, and drop it on your crotch. Now you walking through the airport with lipstick, eyeshadow, and look like you urinated on yourself. And if you didn't go in the bathroom, you didn't know. Or he was good for it. A lot of guys would do that, ribs, like Ronnie Garvin. He would come up behind you at 80 miles per hour and start pushing you down the highway.
What's an example of a Fuji rib that would go to the gates of hell, as you mentioned?
The famous one that they always say that I wasn't around, here we go. It was kind of like, I don't know, but I haven't heard, but it's famous, was the Bow Wow Teriyaki.
I'm going to guess that must be a dog then. Okay, I didn't hear about that one.
Apparently it was somewhere in some territory where him and Morocco was at, and some guy, one of the boys that worked with him, owed Fuji some money. He wouldn't pay Fuji no money. He said, "He might want my money." Wouldn't pay him, Popson, his money. He said, "I want my money." And the guy's, "I get your money. Your money's good with me. Don't want so anyway." Fuji got to Morocco and said, "Hey, tonight we're gonna have a special meal tonight." He said, "Invite so and so over to the house." And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "We're going to have teriyaki tonight." Teriyaki. Oh, Fuji could cook, right? That was his rap. He was a real good cook.
Yeah.
So apparently, they brought the guy over, and he had the teriyaki all set up in the kitchen on, stove and all the stuff you need, rice and whatnot, and this and that. So they had 2 big old things of teriyaki. And Don Morocco went in there. This was it. I don't even know. You know how these things get out of hand. If Morocco was to hear this, he might say, "You're crazy, hillbilly." What I heard was it
Don got ready to get his teriyaki, and Fuji said, no, Don, you get out of this one. You get out of this one. All right. So he goes and gets teriyaki. And they're eating it, and so he serves the other guy there, and they're eating. He says, boy, food, this teriyaki's great, man. He says, nobody can cook like you. That's great, man. Oh, it's good. He said, how you do this? He said, how you cook so good? He said, I've been cooking a long time. Long time. He says, what kind of teriyaki? That's the best. He said, that's a special teriyaki I got. What do you mean? He says, it's a special called Bow Wow Teriyaki. You know, sound like some Asian. Bow Wow Teriyaki. He's like, what does that mean? He said, Bow Wow. He said, yeah, very good teriyaki. He said, yeah. He said, man, that's the best ever. He said, oh, you like it? Fuji gets up, right? Goes to the kitchen, grabs a garbage can, takes the top off it, reaches in and grabs this dog head. And it's his little pet dog. He's feeding him his own pet dog.
It was such a life where 95% of the wrestling profession was traveling. And after years, it gets boring. So you had some characters and that would pull the classic, the rib. The rib was a thing within the business. Some guys were ribbers, some guys weren't ribbers. I would never rib anybody because I did not want the revenge rib. And I was lucky because I had that reputation of being a hooker, so no one really ribbed me. But guys like Fuji and some other guys, they loved to rib you just to break the monotony of boredom. And they would do things like if someone fell asleep in the dressing room on a table, they'd put 4 or 5 strips of that white tape on your boot and light it on fire. So all of a sudden you'd wake up and this big flame, you'd have a giant hot foot, and you'd start jumping around, putting it on. Fuji'd laugh his ass off. But you were afraid to do a revenge rib to Fuji because he would do a more ridiculous rib back.
Yeah.
So I never got involved in the rib games. But one time he gets his hands on this thing that for some reason cracked him up. The stuff that makes you go to the bathroom.
Laxatives.
Yeah, laxatives. And Haystacks Calhoun, who can barely get on the plane to begin with through the door because he's 610 pounds. His butt is this wide. He's on there and Fuji's ex-laxing something into his coffee and stuff. And so halfway to the flight, and you got like a 13-hour flight, to Tokyo. So we're in the middle of the ocean on our way to Tokyo, and Calhoun is dying. He is dying. You can hear him like he's squirting out farts. He's dying. He's got the cramps. He can't hold it. Finally, he tried, but he can't. The lavatories on an airplane, you slide the little things open, it's this wide.
Yeah.
Haystacks couldn't get 1/2 of his ass in there, let alone his ass. So in the back of the plane, behind the curtain, these poor Japanese students, there's 2 of them, and they're holding a big garbage bag under his ass, and you can hear it squirting and some moans because the smell coming out. And some people were gagging. Some of the Japanese people were laughing their asses off. Thank God in those days you could smoke, and all the Japanese smoked. At least the plane was full of smoke and killed some of the stench. But and Fuji was dying. Unbelievable. You had to be there to really appreciate the scope of that. But it was a classic.
And his dad pulled the rib on me one day. I'll throw that in there right now. I went to eat dinner at their house, and this is when I was first trying to date my wife, Julie's sister, Tony. And, I'm all decked out and ready to go, and we ate this fabulous meal. And then all of a sudden I said, okay, I want to leave it at that. And I went home, and I'm on my way home all of a sudden. I was going, what's going on here? My stomach, I don't know what's happening. All of a sudden I had to go to the bathroom so bad, poop-wise, not number 1, number 2. I had a big old 1972 Cadillac, me and Sag owned, that we bought from our buddy. It was an older Cadillac, but it was a nice one, and the interior was all white. And I couldn't make it home. I had to pull on a side lot, and I opened the door, and I got out, and I had make a number 2 in the middle of the road. And you know what? I was so overjoyed. I know it's disgusting, and I'm there in the middle of the road, and I'm making a number 2. I said, oh, thank the Lord, I got it out. And all of a sudden, I took the right-hand turn to go back in my car and look, and I didn't make it out. The whole front of my white Cadillac was filled with a brown stain that nobody would want to see in their life. And all of a sudden, I get home to the house me and Jerry are staying at. We owned a restaurant at the time. And I came walking in and I had no pants on. And Sags is in the other room, the big living room we had with the big screen. And he saw me walking in with no drawers on. And he goes, don't you have no pants on? What happened? I said, Greg's dad just ribbed me and put something in my food, and I just shit up the Cadillac. And it took me 5 hours to clean that son of a bitch. I love you, Johnny Valentine. You're one of a kind.
What's the funniest rib you ever saw pulled in wrestling?
The funniest rib I ever saw pulled in pro wrestling. Man, that's a tough question. I can tell you one of the... It's hard for me to say what the funniest rib is, but I can tell you one that happened to me that I will give props for. It was a pretty good rib, and that was when Al Snow had put my cell phone number, on Live Raw on USA Network. He was doing a pre-tape where he was trying to find Pepper. Big Boss Man at the time had stolen his little dog, Pepper. And so every week, Al Snow was doing a vignette on Raw. You know, if you found Pepper or whatever, he'd cut a promo. And so one day I was walking during the daytime, this is long before Raw starts, I was walking down the back hallway towards the locker room, and I saw Al Snow way down at the end of the hall with the TV crew, and they were going to tape their vignettes. And as I was getting ready to make a right turn to walk into the locker room, I heard Al way down the hallway say to the producer, "No, that is Val's." And so I stopped and I looked down the hall and I said, "Hey Al, what's mine?" And he goes, "Oh, nothing, I'll tell you after." I said, "All right." And I walked into the locker room not thinking anything of it. Later on that evening, the show's on, I go out, I do my match, I come back into the locker room and there's a monitor in our locker room. Now I'm completely covered in sweat. I'm standing there with my hands on my hips, just waiting to cool down to stop sweating so I can go into the shower, change, and, you know, get ready to move on to the next city. In the monitor, I'm watching Raw live. Kind of half paying attention to it, half not. And I noticed that my cell phone rings in my bag, so I reach down, I pick up my cell phone, and I answer it, and the other person on the other line says, "Is this the phone I called to when I find Pepper?" And I was like, "Who's Pepper? What are you talking about?" And I hung up the phone because they wouldn't answer my question, and I hung up. As soon as I hung up, it rang again. And the second time I answered, it was a lady on the phone that said, "Is this the number I call to find Pepper?" And I'm like, "What? How could they? What the heck? Pepper what?" And then I started listening, and the whole locker room was dead silent. And immediately I look, and I can see on the monitor that Al Snow's just wrapping up his whole Pepper thing, and he had put my number live on the air, and I knew it right away. It all clicked in. And I was like, "Oh, no way." And I hung up the phone, and the second I hung up, it rang again, and I went, "Oh!" And I turn around, and Al beelines it out the door, running, laughing his ass off the whole way down the hall. And yeah, so my number was all over USA Network, and the second you hit hang up, it would ring again. And it did. I turned it off. 2 hours later, Tess and A-Train and I are driving down the road to the next city, and A-Train asked me, "Hey, is your phone still ringing?" And I was like, "Hey, good question. Let's find out." And I go and turn it on, and sure enough, as soon as it got reception, this is 2 hours later, as soon as it got reception, it's ringing. My voicemail box was already full. I think at that time it only held 50 emails or something like that. It was already full, and it just rang, and I had to get the number changed. The next morning, it was still ringing. It was insane. Really good rib.
You mentioned you became friends with Terry Funk. Do you have any stories about Terry Funk?
Yeah, Terry got me with the greatest rib. After the fight with Adrian Adonis, Terry was friends with Sylvester Stallone. And Terry calls me and he says, Sylvester Stallone is looking for a white boxer. And I told him about you and he wants to meet you. And I said, oh, Terry, quit messing with me. You know, I didn't believe him. Then I get a phone call from this guy and he says, this is so-and-so from Tiger Eye Productions. I work for Sylvester Stallone. We understand that you're coming to Las Vegas and we would like to fly. No, we're working in LA. He says, we understand you're coming to LA. We would like to fly you over to Vegas to meet Stallone to talk about becoming a boxer. And so when I got to my hotel in LA, there was a ticket for me to fly to Las Vegas. And it was from Tiger Eye Production, was I guess his production company, or I thought it was. And so I fly to Vegas, I get out of the limo, and this guy comes up and says, Sylvester Stallone had to leave town. Sorry, he can't meet you. And then Terry was there working on a movie with Sylvester Stallone in Vegas. And to this day, I think it was a rib. Stallone never knew anything about me. And I just think Terry pulled a great rib on me.
This again was early on, and I was at. I remember being at the bar with the boys, and Alundra was there, and Luna was somewhere. But Alundra, I had the long hair, you know, when I came in, and Alundra Blaze, Medusa, she grabbed me from behind, but she was sitting like up on a bar, and she grabbed me and pulled me like between her legs, not like in a sexual. I was facing the other direction, but she was just kind of like massaging my shoulders, you know. Of course, I'm going, what's going on? Wondering what was up with that. And Kevin Nash kind of gave me a funny look during that thing too, to the point where I asked him, you know, we're not gonna have a problem, are we? And he's like, no, I don't fight the boys or something like that. But it seemed weird. But what ended up happening was, later on that evening, Luna called me because, as I said, I was the new guy in the company. And I knew Luna from Florida and knew Luna from Miami. And she called me and said, come to the room. She wanted to talk to me. And she was just kind of asking me how things were going. She was like, how are things going for you so far? You know, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah. And then her phone rang. And she started talking to somebody on the phone as I was standing there. And she started saying things like, do you want me to tell him? He's right here. So I figured out whoever she's talking to was talking about me. So I thought. And she played this whole thing, and what she ended up doing is telling me that was Alundra Medusa on the phone, and she was asking about me. Now, this is the perfect rib because, as I said, Luna was kind of massaging my shoulders in the bar. She wasn't necessarily coming on to me, but she was just being nice. But Luna took the opportunity, and she made it sound like Alundra was interested in me. So what she did is she gave me Alundra's room number. I always get ribbed with the room numbers. I'm such a sucker. She gave me Alundra's room number and said, she wants you to come down there. So I just remember going to Alundra's room and knocking on the door. And she opened the door, and she had a phone in her hand. And she just looked at me and started laughing. Like, what the hell are you doing here? And I realized, oh my God. And I realized at that moment how ruthless these people were, and that I had to be on my guard forever and always.
Well, Alundra did date Greg Valentine for a while, so you would have been a couple steps up from him at least.
Well, and I think she was just coming out of that relationship at the time. If I remember what Luna was saying, she was saying she said that she was dating Valentine before that, but they weren't dating anymore or something. I didn't know. I was just stupid.
Could you tell that story from, I believe it was Florida, with Terry Funk and Rick Martel?
I have mixed emotions about telling it because I started telling the story one time. Rick was there, and I got the impression that the story is being told that for Rick, who had gone from becoming a young guy in the business to a legitimate star, he was the AWA World Heavyweight Champion, and this was early in his career, and And so I'm going to tell you the story, but I want to cover it by saying that it was young in Rick Martel's career, and we can laugh about it. It would be embarrassing to him, but he is a great guy, extremely successful, saved his money, carved his niche. Gagne made him the world champion up there, and it's just a funny story. We were working the Florida Territory, and we were going to Melbourne. And you go over Melbourne over to where I think the turnpike exit is in Ocala. And then you continue on a 2-lane road through the swamps over till you get to the coast to Melbourne. So Roger Kirby and I were tag partners. We're riding, and Terry Funk is driving and has Rick Martel with him. So there's no cars on that 2-lane road. This is in the middle of the day. And all of a sudden I look in the mirror and I said, man, somebody's coming up behind us and they're flying. And as the car goes past, Kirby says, oh, he had that slow drawl. He said, that's that crazy Terry Funk. And had Rick Martel with him. So we don't go a whole lot past that, and all of a sudden we see a car in the middle of the road stopped on the highway. Right in the middle of the highway, on the middle of the stripe where you can't, difficult to get, you could get around, but difficult to get around. You don't want to run into him. So as I slowed down and realized that it's Terry Funk. So we stopped a couple car lengths behind him, not knowing what's going on. And once we came to a stop, all of a sudden the passenger door opens. Rick Martel gets out of the passenger side, buck naked, and he's doing a dance around the back of the car for our entertainment along the driver's side. Before he gets to the front of the car, Terry Funk floors it. Zoom, it takes off, and all of a sudden Rick Martel realizes that, hey, the car I was in with my clothes just took off. Now he turns, and there's nobody else out there in this desolate highway but Roger and I. So we ease up, and we thought, we got to take off down the road too and leave him here at least for a minute or two. Just so as I ease up, all of a sudden I cut the wheel to the right to try and go by him, and he realized, oh no, and he's running alongside my side to hold on to the mirror. And I just want to go, and I'm gradually picking up speed, and he's running faster, and then all of a sudden his fingers slip off the mirror. And I look in the rearview mirror, and there's plop, 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 Rick Martel, buck naked, flipping on the asphalt, and Roger in his slow humor said, oh my God, I think we might have killed him. So we rode ahead, and now Terry Funk has already started back. We make a U-turn, we go back, and it's, Rick. And we stop, and then in that thing where he was running along the side of me, which was, I don't know how far he got, but it wasn't like, I don't think 50 yards, if that much. Running naked. He had a cat's eye pinky ring that his sister had given him that had great sentimental value, been in the family or something. And as he's running, that thing fell off. He said, it's here somewhere. Now we feel bad because we pulled a rib on him, and we furthered the rib, and now he's lost his ring. And I said, okay, well, it's got to be right here. We'll look for it if it fell off your finger. Fate would have it. One of those storms comes through, as happens in Florida, and all of a sudden the clouds come in and it is pouring rain. And we're walking on the edge of the road, hoping we find that ring. We are drenched. And finally, right on the edge of the grass is like a twig and had a little thing on it, and there's the ring sitting on it. Got the ring back, got in the car, all of us soaking wet, went on through to Melbourne, and went in to dry off. And of course, that story has lived on and on.
Funny thing, okay? Looking back now, it's hilarious, okay? When
we decided that we were done with wrestling. The European tour was our last. That was it. We're done. We had plenty of money to live the rest of our lives, and we got in the car to go back, and I started smelling something. It's like, what is that smell? I mean, it's just like a dog defecating in the car. I'm like, what is going on here? And she's going, oh my gosh, what is that? And she opens her bag and she finds the poop. And it was like, oh, that's so disgusting. You know, it was like horrible. We had to throw out the bags and everything, you know, it was just terrible. But we didn't know who did it at the time, you know.
But Owen was one of those guys that had such a sense of humor, you know, that he'd be saying something, you'd be thinking it's just a conversation, and meanwhile he's hitting with a zinger. One time we were in Germany, he was wrestling Davey Boy Smith. I think it was Germany. Anyway, he flying mared Davey Boy and puts him in a headlock, and you know, from the back all you could see is like, you know, without my glass I could just see like certain generalities. And I see him take it down and goes like that to Davey Boy. Davey Boy starts spitting, you know, does it again. And this goes on like 4 or 5, 6 times. What the hell is he doing out there? Is it like he keeps wiping his hand across his face? What the hell is he doing? Davey Boy comes back and he's got this beard of shit all over his face. There's coffee grounds and bananas and like ground up bananas and God knows whatever else was there. And I'm thinking, like, well, you know, he had it somewhere in his tights, and when he built it, he kept wiping different shit on Davey Boy's face. He was funny.
I'm glad you seem to be doing better now, and you survived your match with Abdullah the Butcher too. You're one of the few from this generation that's wrestled him.
Well, it takes one to know one, my friend. Jeez Louise. I guess I'm lucky I didn't cut him. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or he didn't cut. Was he bleeding in that match with you?
No, he didn't end up bleeding. Yeah.
Lucky you. Can you do an impression of that asshole?
I don't know. You know what's funny? I can't really do it. I've never really tried. Hi, he's got kind of a voice like this. It's kind of I wish my sisters and my brothers could have been here. I don't know. I can't grasp his voice. I'd have to really focus on it a little.
How you doing, Chip?
There you go.
Really high.
My last interaction with him, I actually did a podcast with Smith Hart, rest his soul. And Smith was doing a podcast, and he had me on faking as Austin. So he was like, "We're gonna get Abdullah. We're gonna call Abdullah. We're gonna play a rib on him." So we call Abdullah, and then Abdullah thinks he's talking to Austin. Like, "Hey, Abdullah the Butcher, I'm a big fan. Do you remember back in the Chamber of Horrors?" And he was going on thinking he's talking to Austin. "Steve, I was a big fan of yours too." And then Smith breaks kayfabe in the middle of it. He's like, "It's not really Austin. It's my friend Jason." And Abdullah wanted off the phone after. It was just so sad. Anyway.
Oh, let me see. Well, did I ever tell you the rib with Christian and Edge?
No.
With the itching powder?
No.
So this was after Al Snow had put my cell phone number live on Raw, and my phone blew up. It was a big rib, really good rib, by the way, really good rib. Al's one of the most phenomenal human beings that I know in professional wrestling. He's genuine. He's hardworking. He's a go-getter. I love Al Snow. That guy's just an incredible dude, and loved working with him. We had so much fun working with Al Snow. But after he had put my number on Raw live, I'm trying to think of something I'm going to do to get back at Al Snow. So I thought of all kinds of things. One of the things I was trying to do was, does he buy insurance on his rental car? And is he fully covered? If he was, I had a couple of ideas of what I was going to do. I was going to follow him to a restaurant afterwards. This was one. And I think he told me about this rib before. So I was actually going to do the rib to him and put his car up on blocks, take the tires off and throw him in the car
Now he's got to come out of the restaurant and put tires back on his car and somehow get the car off of brick blocks, right? Well, that didn't pan out. So I was trying to find out if he had insurance on his car. And I never found this out because something else happened. But what my plan was, is if he had insurance on the car, I was going to get the expanding foam that you can buy in cans from like Home Depot or Lowe's. And when he parked his rental car at the arena, I was going to slip the hose through the crack in the window and fill the whole car up with expanding foam. The car will be ruined, be completely destroyed. And so that's why I spent a couple of weeks trying to get it out of him, talk to him a little bit and say, hey, by the way, do you pay for the insurance on the rental car when you get it, or do you already have it on your policy that you have personally? Or and he wouldn't, I just couldn't get it out of him. Well, while I spent a couple of weeks all the time trying to whittle it out of him, I found out that it was Christian that had told Al Snow to put my number live on Raw. So while Al was the performer putting my number on Raw, Christian was the mastermind. So my target went from locked on to Al Snow to locked on to Christian. So now I've had to restructure everything in my head and figure out a good rib to play on Christian. So A-Train and Tess and I, one day, we were in a mall. We walked into a magic shop and Tess pulled out some itching powder. And I'm like, does that stuff really make you itch? He goes, oh, yeah. And so I thought of a perfect rib. And I believe it was Hershey, Pennsylvania that we were at. And when I got to the arena, I went into the locker room. We were there around noon. I walked into the locker room, and Edge and Christian aren't there. A lot of the other guys are there, but Edge and Christian aren't there yet. They haven't arrived. So, I'm putting my bags on my spot, getting all set up. And then Edge and Christian come in, and I say, hey, guys, what's up? And they go and they drop their bags in their spot. I should have been paying attention to how they were putting their bags and stuff, but whatever, I wasn't. And finally, as the boys started heading out of the locker room and heading down to catering to grab a bite to eat, I was saying to Tess and Edge, I said, hey, guys, when everybody's gone, watch the locker room door. I'm going to go into Christian's bag, pull his tights out, and in the crotch area, I'm going to fill it up with itching powder and then kind of take a pencil and really rub it in there. And Edge was sitting right across from me reading the book. And everyone else had left. And I'm sitting there scratching my head. I'm going, come on, this son of a bitch has got to leave this locker room. And finally, after a few minutes, I figured he's going to read that whole book here. I said, screw it, I'll do it another time. So I get up, and as I walk out, Tess and A-Train are at the front door like they're supposed to be, watching, making sure nobody comes in. And I go, guys, we're going to have to do it another time because Edge is in there. He's going to read that whole damn book before he leaves. And as soon as I said that, Edge walked out. And he says to us, he goes, hey, you guys going to catering? And I'm like, yeah, you going there now? He goes, yeah, we'll see you there in a minute. As soon as Edge took off to catering, I turned to Tess and A-Train and said, guys, watch this door. And I dove back in there, and I walked up to where I know Edge and Christian set their bags down. And I'm looking at the bags. I'm going, which one's Christian? Which one's Edge's? Fuck it. I'll do them both. So I pulled out Edge's trunks or whoever it was, rubbed a little bit in the crotch, and with a pencil, I just pushed it all into the material. Pulled out the other trunks out of the other bag, put it all in the material. And of course, as the night goes on, we're getting closer to showtime. Edge and Christian eventually come in and get dressed. And they're putting their long tights on, their boots, and they're walking around the locker room and nothing's happening. And I know for a fact that stuff was itchy because my hand got really, really itchy when I was working with it, trying to put it in there. And I figured, well, maybe once it's out of the bag, if it's out any length of time, it stops itching maybe. I didn't know. I just figured this is a dud. They're walking around and nothing's happening. And I'm like, well, that was a waste of money. Well, when they went out to gorilla position because they were getting ready to wrestle, Tess comes right in. Val, you got to come see this. And I followed Tess all the way out to the base of where gorilla position is. And I'm looking up into gorilla position, and I see Edge and Christian pulling the material off their crotch area. I died, completely died. And then I watched them go out to the ring, and they got to do a tag match. And every time the guy standing on the corner while his partner's wrestling. They're sitting there moving, their legs are totally uncomfortable, and it's clearly obvious. Then they started tagging in and out faster and faster because they both wanted to be the guy that's sitting there holding the turnbuckle, just so they can try to fiddle around with trying to get comfortable. But when they came back to the locker room after their match, I was dying laughing. When they came into the locker room, I kind of had to settle down, right? Like, and the only people that knew were me, Test, and A-Train. No one else knew at that point. And Edge and Christian came running to the locker room, going, oh my God. They're ripping their clothes off. And I'm like, dude, what's up? And Edge looked right at me in the eye, and he goes, I think Christian bought laundry detergent that we're both allergic to. I busted out laughing. Going, Christian, why would you buy laundry? I didn't do that. That's ridiculous. And of course, once they got all their clothes off, they ran into the shower, and apparently running water makes itching powder even worse. And so they were screaming in the showers. It was hilarious. It was funny. And then that night, a couple hours later, we were all at the Outback Steakhouse, and Test and Adrian and I walked into Outback, and of course, there's Edge and Christian. I'm going, hey guys, what's up? They're like, man, this stuff's still itchy. And Edge is like telling Christian, man, I don't know what laundry detergent you bought, but you need to stop using that stuff. It was hysterical. Absolutely hysterical.
Okay, so one night I was in charge of the ring crew for the West Coast, and we were doing a show in Reno, Nevada. I did the ring announcing for the show, and then later tearing the ring down, disassembling the ring. I had my truck backed up to my area at the Lawler Events Center, I think it was called, in Reno. So I'm disassembling the ring, and for some weird reason, Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith come out, and they sit in the ringside chairs watching us take the ring down at the end of the show. And I'm thinking, this is kind of strange. And I walk over to Dynamite and I say, hey, what's going on, brother? And he goes, hey, nothing. Just how you guys doing? I go, good. Still wondering what in the hell he's doing out here. Why would he even be out here? I think they'd worked with Demolition or somebody that night. I don't even know. It's like, why are they out here? And then they get up and leave without saying a word. And I'm carrying stuff to the ring. And then Chief Jay Strongbow walks out and he goes, hey, Billy, let me talk to you. And I go, what's going on, Chief? He goes, who has a big soda sitting here by this chairs right here? I said, I think that's one of my ring crew. I had 2 ring crew guys. And I said, that's one of my ring crew guys. He says, has that guy drank anything out of there? And he goes, I said, yeah, he's been drinking it for the last 15 minutes. He says, well, Dynamite was sitting right there. And he says, I saw Dynamite put something in his drink. And I go, are you kidding me? And this kid, who he was about, his name was Tony. He was about 5'10", maybe about 300 pounds, very overweight. And probably a little slow on top of it. He needed nothing to make him slower, mentally or physically, for that matter. All of a sudden, just as Chief is telling me this story, I look over at Tony, and I have one friend, Ricky Ataki, is helping me take the ring down. I'm watching Ricky take stuff from the ring and go to the truck, take stuff from the ring, go to the truck, back and forth, back and forth. And I see Tony moving like in a cartoon, slow motion, carrying the same item, walking slow. And I go, Tony, what's wrong? And he goes, nothing. I'm okay. I go, Tony, what's wrong? He goes, nothing. He's carrying to the ring. And Ataki he comes over to me and he goes, Bill, what happened to Tony? And I says, Chief just said Dynamite drugged him or did something, because all of a sudden Dynamite came out here for no reason, sitting at the ringside watching the ring crew. Come on. I'm not stupid. What would he have to do? He could care less. And all of a sudden Tony's moving like a snail, like a turtle. So make a long story short, we finally got done with the ring, and Tony goes, Bill, can I lay in the back of the truck on the pads and ride? We were driving to Sacramento for a show the next night. And I said, yeah. I said, you can do that, Tony, if you want. And I stopped about 30 miles out of town in Reno, and Tony couldn't even be woken up. He was so out. We pulled the roll-up door open on this truck, and we were shaking him. He was so out of it that we thought he was dead. We thought we were going to have to call paramedics or take him to a hospital. And the point I'm trying to make by all this is, okay, it's a rib. I understand Dynamite's playing ribs, But he doesn't know if that kid could have an allergic reaction to that and had a heart attack and died. He was way overweight. He didn't know if it was him. What if it was Ataki? What if it was me? What if he killed me? I don't know. I could have been dead by that rib.
Could have been the guy driving. Bruce Hart told me a story once that Bruce figured out that they tried to spike his drink, so he didn't drink it, but he was the one driving, and he said after they gave it to someone else and the other guy like had an incident, and Bruce is like, I'm driving and you wanted to give that to me?
Exactly. You're right. I would have been in a WWF truck and could have killed my other two guys in a car accident because I fell asleep at the wheel because they're relaxed and conked out because we were all tired. We were on the road for a few days doing shows. So they're sleeping and I fall asleep at the wheel, drive off a bridge somewhere and kill us all. And WWF's truck. Oh my God, what a nice scandal that would have been. So those are the mean ribs. Those are the ribs that I didn't do in the business. Yeah, I put baby oil in a guy's cowboy boots, or I played stupid little ribs like that, but I didn't play life-threatening ribs that could kill people. I know the Nasty Boys cut John Tolis's shoelaces in Calgary one night at WWF TV tapings that I was at. Tolis was pissed. That was when he was the coach. And I know there's ribs like that to get played. Okay, that's a matter of just buying some new shoelaces and the inconvenience of it all. But when you drug people, you have no idea what their allergic reaction is going to be to anything, what their tolerance level is. That could have killed this kid instantly with a heart attack. And he was 17, 18 years old. So there I am taking this poor little kid away from his family for a road trip for WWF, helping with the ring. He was one of my students. So I tell his family, he's safe with me. Tony's cool. You know, I'm an adult. I'll be watching out for Tony. And there's this big legendary wrestler, Dynamite Kid, that spikes his drink and kills the kid if it would have happened. And how's that look to me and everybody else, his kid, his life, his family's life, WWF, getting sued probably by the family and everything, blah, 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 on down. Dynamite had no caring for any of that. He could care less. That's, to me, very mean-spirited.
Did you just have to shut up about that because, like, you don't want to get on Dynamite's bad side?
And even Chief at that time, you know, he wasn't going to say nothing to Vince or anybody. Hey, man, this guy tried to kill the ring crew. You know, I mean, he's like, well, brothers, you know, it's like part of the road. That was his attitude. He didn't say that, but it's like, so be it. It's part of the life. It's road stuff. But it could have backfired on them all. It could have. Luckily, we roused Tony. We ended up getting him into a Denny's. He fell asleep in a salad. He actually fell asleep with his face. He fell forward in his salad. We tried to wake him up and get some food in him to try to wean off some of his drugs. And it was very, very rough getting him through to Sacramento that night and have him asleep. We had him sleeping on the floor. He was like passed out because me and Ataki took the two beds. We put Tony on the floor. He was third rung of the ladder here. So he slept on the floor and he was out like a light. He slept like 10, 12 hours. He was gone and slept it off, luckily, but it could have killed him.
We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Again, he my knees hurt. He had gotten ice for my knee before we left the building. We're in this rent-a-car. He tells me to sit in the back seat. I was going to sit in the front. He goes, why don't you sit in the back and stretch out? I said, okay. So I was in the back stretching out. And he said, okay, Brian. As we stopped, he went and checked in, let me stay there with the ice that he got me. He's being really nice. So it's time to get out and take our bags up to the room. And he goes, come on, let me help you out. He opens the door for me. And as I go to get out, I take a step backwards, obviously, and my hurt knee is still dangling in the car as I got my right foot out in the back of this rent-a-car. And all of a sudden, boom, he goosed me. He hit me in the butt with his thumb so hard that my head went up and it hit the top of the car, the solid steel part of the door frame. And when my head hit that, just a goose egg swelled right up. And he thought that was so funny. He thought that was hilarious. And I'm cussing him out. I think, I can't believe you did this to me. So we had some words back and forth, and we get in the room, and all he wants to do is go to the gym, work out. So we get in the room, and he's going, come on, Beep, hurry up, man. We got to get to the gym. I said, Paul, man, my head hurts. My knee hurts. My head hurts now. Everything's funny. So I said, okay, now he's going, come on, get dressed. And I said, okay, I'll get dressed. So Paul says, I'm going to get dressed too. And put my shorts on. We're out of here in 10 minutes. Better be ready. So I see him next to the wall, and he's pulling his jeans off because he was so lazy in a way, or trying to be so efficient. He would wear no underwear under his jeans, just jeans. That's just the truth. And we're both heterosexual. But anyway, not that it matters. We have some gay friends. We both love Pep Hatters. He's bouncing up and down against the wall, trying to pull he was too lazy to pull his tennis shoes off, so he's trying to take his jeans over his tennis shoes. And so as he's jumping up and down, trying to pull the jean off of it over his tennis shoes, he's got his hand against the wall, and my head's still spinning, but I look and I see a Days In yellow number 2 pencil with the eraser right there. So I lick that pencil, and I'm kind of getting the good aim as he's jumping up and down, being Oscar the Grouch. Got that good aim, and boom, all of a sudden he stands up, and as he did, that pencil went right up his rectum. Ah! He starts screaming. He goes, "I'm gonna kill you, God damn it, what you do to me." Oh my gosh. And he's holding his butt, and he's jumping up and down, and he's trying to grab the pencil, and he can't get the pencil. He goes, "Nah, I'm gonna kill you." So he starts waddling to me because his pants are caught at his legs. So he's waddling to me, and I didn't want any part of Paul at the time. He was so mad. So I run out the door, and as he starts to chase me, and as he does, he goes out the door, and the door slams behind him, and he's got a pencil up his butt, and his pants are at his ankles, and he can't catch me, no way. And all of a sudden the door's shut, doesn't know what to do, so he turns around to get back into the room, and there's this maid with the cart right there, and she looks, and I'm telling you, this woman, I swear, she was just like one of the most. She could have been an actress with the look on her face, and she put her hand over her. I don't know exactly what she said, but it was like, "I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe I'm seeing this." And she didn't know what to do. And Paul's saying, "Open my door, open my door." And she's going, "I can't believe I'm seeing this." And so they argued, and I left. And I don't know how he got into the room to this day, but he was mad at me for a week after that. I don't know how'd you get that pencil out of your butt?
I don't know. It was real though. It happened.
It never ended. When we drove by in Montreal, we saw a skunk in the median one night, and he wanted to stop the car, and we jumped out. We were trying to capture the skunk because we wanted to release it in the locker room. Davey and Owen one time ribbed him and put a padlock on one of his singlets, the one that he liked to wear, the black one. He didn't like to wear this other one that we had. He had to wear it all the time on the road. And keep in mind, this is when we go out for 14, 15 days at a time. So he could not get that lock off for weeks. He tried everything while he was home, off the road, when he come back out. He tried everything to get that lock off. And we're up in New Albany, and we're running upstate New York, and we're running Maine. And last night on the tour was Bangor, Maine. And whenever we'd stay in a town for a few days, which we'd try to get the same hotel and stay there for 4 or 5 days in a row, so we didn't have to keep packing up and unpacking and packing. And when we would, he would go to the grocery store and we'd buy food so we could help save money. So we go to the grocery store. Marty buys a bunch of food, and he buys peel and eat shrimp in a bag, like a pound of peel and eat shrimp. And he eats the shrimp, and he keeps the bag of brine. And I'm like, what are you doing with that? And now keep in mind, Davey and Owen had put that padlock, and he was so hot at those guys for padlocking his gear. He's like, I'm gonna get fucking Davey and Owen back. And I'm like, when are we gonna do this? He goes, the last night of the tour. That's, we're gonna wait until they got to go home. I go, okay. So we kept that bag of brine in the room for like 5 days. The smell, and we didn't realize it was the bag of brine, but the smell, like the worst, dirty, athletic, sweaty sock smell, was in that room, to the point where we complained to the hotel, changed rooms because of the smell. And it was like close to the last night, because we kept it in there for probably 3 or 4 days. And so we put it in the car. That was when we realized, oh, it's coming from that plastic bag of brine, because the car started smelling like that. Marty brings it into the building. The dressing room starts to smell like that. So Davey and Owen knew something was up. So they got dressed in their cars. And then they brought their bags in like an idiot, and they went to the ring. And then Marty poured that bag of brine in each one of their bags, and sent them home with their clothes smelling like that. So
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.